we've got a situation at our house where we've got some neighbors that have decided to start raising alpacas, and they went ahead and got themselves a
livestock guardian dog.
A livestock guardian dog. I guess this happened around mid-June, and we didn't know this. We didn't know this actually until Friday, but we knew about the dog mid-June because it barks incessantly at night. We just thought it was a pet dog, and we kind of knew it was them. You could hear the dog. We like to leave our windows open at night, and it was to the point where we can't leave our windows open, and my wife and I, with the windows closed, she can't sleep with earplugs in her ears because this thing is barking all night long. And what this dog does is, if it sees a threat or if it hears a threat, it's guarding their livestock, and it starts barking, and it does not stop. It can go for 20 minutes at a time and not stop. But, well, anyhow, my wife left a note on their gate Thursday and asking them, please take your dog in at night, because we didn't realize what the whole situation was. And Friday, I think it was the caretaker, because we don't know these folks at all. But I think she came down and she asked me if I had left a note on their gate concerning their dog. Well, I didn't know that my wife had done this Thursday. And I said, I didn't leave the note. And she said, well, someone's concerned about our dog's barking. And I said, well, I'm glad somebody else is. And I kind of let it on the line with her. I just told her, I said, you've got to lose this dog. It's taking away our sleep, you know. And so what it came down to was, she said, well, the way I got used to it was I bought a fan for my bedroom, and the fan drowns out the barking, so we'll buy you a fan.
A noisy fan.
A noisy fan, and that way you'll get used to the fan and you won't hear the dog barking. And I said, that's not acceptable. I said, lose the dog. And the conversation basically, she offered me this letter. It was a brochure and a letter, I guess, to explain the whole situation. I said, does the letter explain how you're going to lose the dog? And she said, no, because we're agricultural, we can do this. And I said, well, then I don't want the letter. And so she left, and I went about my business. So we had to do a favor for our neighbor next door, Adam. He's here at the meeting, and we noticed that this note was tucked on their door handle. So we opened it because they weren't here. We had to check on their house for them, and we kind of read what was going on, and now we know that they're raising livestock in this house up here. They consider themselves a farm, I guess, all of a sudden, and they can take this dog and I called Pat Sale this morning. I'm kind of frustrated right now. I called Pat Sale.
There's Pat.
So I called Pat,
Yeah.
and he recommended that we should, approach you folks with this thing, because we are kind of at a loss right now as what to do. What do we do next? So we read that I took the brochure to the town office this morning and the letter, and Tina made a copy of it.
They all have a copy of it.
Yeah, and it describes the dog, and this dog for whatever reason, the dog is scared of fireworks and shooting. And the dog has bolted from the property a number of times, including today. Last night, matter of fact, it was on Facebook last night. The owner put the dog on Facebook, and they finally found it. But
As I recall,
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
there was something like a 4-day multi-town search for the dog around the 4th of July when it bolted because of
At one
the,
point, the dog was like
Yeah.
10 miles away from here.
But if you read the brochure on the dog, it tells you not to approach it. Don't approach our dogs without us present because they are working and they may view you as a threat.
And
So-
we have children on
and
this
we have kids on the road
We
here.
have a lot of children down here.
It's a
Concerns
bad
us.
situation. It gets worse as I go on. And I don't know how they justify themselves as being agricultural. I mean,
And it's a violation of the dog ordinance, which is no person shall keep or harbor any dog which by frequent or habitual barking, howling, or yelping disturbs the peace and quiet of persons of ordinary sensibility.
right. But we're looking into whether or not their outfit there actually qualifies as a farm. Because if it doesn't, then the dog is certainly subject to the dog ordinance and all the provisions therein. So, Pat, I don't know what your take is on this.
Yes. I told her, like she called me and I told her that I didn't think that you should have a guard dog for her pets, which were alpacas, their pets. I mean, because I don't think she has a farm. I think she just has it for pets, I think. I mean, just because you have a total alpaca doesn't mean it's a farm.
Yeah, there are a lot of qualifications to meet to actually be
Or not, I think
determined a farm.
you annoy your neighborhood.
So,
back when when Bob Brindley opened or owned the lot that they own there now, they bought the house. The lots that Bob bought were actually part of a plot that we bought into for our house. And these plots were all designated residential. And then Bob Brindley bought those lots so that he had some property. He had very little property with his house to start with. He bought all those lots on the other side of Stone Hollow Road so that he didn't have people building in his backyard. So he went ahead and bought all of those, but they were for houses. They were residential. And I don't know if that has any effect on, because they were zoned residential, whether they can turn that into agricultural all of a sudden, or, I just thought I'd throw that in.
excuse me for just a minute, Randy. Whoever's got the wind chimes, could you mute yourself, please?
Yeah, she's good. It's my wife's phone. She's doing it now.
Sorry. Well, whether it's zoned that way or not, Randy, there are a lot of other qualifications that have to do with the number of livestock, tax filing, income from products generated on the farm. So we're going to look into that, whether or not they actually qualify as a farm. But for the time being, I don't believe they do. And so they should be subject to citations for nuisance animals.
So how do we go forward from here?
I think
Basically, we just want the dog, we just want the dog to stop barking so we can sleep at night.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because they're asking for consideration from us, but I feel like they're not being considerate of their neighbors. We live it's a neighborhood. There are multiple houses that surround, their house kind of sits in the middle of a bunch of houses. So, and I really believe that they should have notified us that they were going to do this so that we could have at least protested then, because I never would have agreed to have a dog bark all night long. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Adam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, if I may, thanks everybody for giving us an opportunity to chat. We were residents during the COVID from March through the end of June, and we definitely had an issue with the dog barking. It kept us up. We were up a couple of weekends ago. Same thing. We have the windows open. You can't sleep. The barking is incessant. And we'll be returning on September 1, possibly for a year in residence at that house. So I was in receipt of the letter. I wrote a very nice email back to them saying, hey, listen, when you cause a problem like this, you can't just say, hey, thanks very much, but get used to it. You offer some sort of concession or some sort of opportunity. They have free range chickens, which is really what they're most concerned about. They don't have a coop, and they're afraid that foxes are going to take their chickens. So that's what they're protecting. The alpacas are something new. They talk about wanting to bring in sheep in the letter. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but our peaceful and quiet enjoyment of our home is completely shot. And I don't believe that their rights of their animals supersede the rights of our peaceful and quiet enjoyment of the home. And I told them, hey, come up with a solution in an email to them. Please, either build a structure for the animals, but the dog really doesn't quite work. It's not, there's no way around it. So I completely support the Fosters and what they're going through. They've obviously lived through it for the entire summer where we have not. But we also have small children. And as I read through, they're 3 and 5. And as I read through this document about these dogs, don't approach them, but they will use the judgment that they have to use the proper amount of force. Humans have a hard time determining what the proper amount of force is in a situation. So I'm not really going to rely on the dog's ability to judge what the proper amount of force is when it perceives as a threat. So if a child with a stick or a child hanging out in the lawn is perceived as a threat by this dog, I think that brings on a huge different level of liability above and beyond the barking.